So this next question comes in response to some comments you made in your previous segment. Have African American Muslims lost their direction?
Again, to some degree, yes, and to some degree, no. Have we lost our direction as black Muslims? I think that when we look at Islam in the history of the African American people, its major presence, it makes itself, Islam as a major phenomena becomes known or conscious among us with the Nation of Islam. And there were other movements, there were other Muslim movements, there were proto-Islamic movements, as Dr. C. Lincoln called them. But I think that the major movement that made Islam sort of a household name in black America was the Nation of Islam. But the Nation of Islam was unique in that, I'm not talking about theology right now, I'm talking about social presence. It addressed the movement itself, the leader of the movement and the members who represented that leader. They addressed what the needs of our people were at that time. Because collectively, black people, we had our disagreements, but we all agreed that we shared the same plight, from slavery to Jim Crow, after Reconstruction to Jim Crow. So you had the civil rights movement. That was one effort to treat the problem of black oppression and our suffering. The Nation of Islam was an alternative movement. And this dichotomy of movements, or this separation of movements, again, it goes back to, it's classically typified in the persons of Du Bois and Booker T. Washington. Du Bois, he posited that we needed to produce a class of philosophers and free thinkers who would go into the liberal arts, expand their minds, and then become the class of men and women who would chart a course for our future, get involved in politics, etc. Booker T. Washington was of the position that we should get into trade and industrial skills, practical skills, skills that we had already picked up in slavery, put those to use to establish a business class to support our uplift. So you had different philosophies, and they're sort of like poster childs for that difference. But these different positions all agreed, though they disagreed on how to get there, they agreed that we needed to go somewhere. We needed to get to a place or a point where we were liberated from, we were freed from the yoke of oppression that was put upon us by white supremacist society. The Nation of Islam comes in that history. It has to be understood in that context, because the same thing that made someone join the civil rights movement also made another person join the Nation of Islam. The same set of circumstances that made my grandfather, for example, migrate up north from Arkansas at 15 to seek a better life is the same thing that made a man like Elijah Poole be attracted to this man teaching these strange teachings that he identified as Islam. And there's a lot to be said about this. I think that African American Muslims today do themselves an immense disservice when they approach Elijah Muhammad, the Nation of Islam, strictly through a theological lens. These were not theologians. These were not people who had a tradition of religion. We were an uneducated people. And I often tell the story of my grandfather, who was reading at a certain level, and he was advancing to the extent that the principal came to my great-grandmother's house and told her, keep him home because he's learning too fast, and if he keeps down this road, his brain would explode. She said something like that. And my grandparents, his parents, kept him home. And it seems funny to us today, but that was their level of knowledge back then. So here you have a man, Elijah Poole, with a third-grade education in rural South. He was an uneducated man. Here's his wife, Clara. I think she finished the 8th grade. So when they accept these teachings that's telling them you are the original people and you're beautiful, many of us today who have accepted Islam, if we were in that condition back then, more than likely we would have accepted it. We were already believing that white Jesus was God. As one sister told me, she said, look, me and my sister worked for a white man. He used to try to rape us every day. She said, I had no problem joining the Nation of Islam. I already knew the white man was a devil. So we do a disservice to ourselves when we are, now I'm not agreeing that the white man is the devil, just to be clear, but what I'm saying is we do a disservice to ourselves when we are now so Islamically advanced and we just cut off a whole segment of African American history. That's our history. If that's not our history, if it doesn't belong to us, who does it belong to? You don't reject your history. You look at it, see where you went wrong, and make improvements on it. And you appreciate the people before you for their good intention. Only us do we do that with, mind you. The white man still celebrates when he used to be a heathen, eating, drinking blood. The Arabs too. Every other group on this earth still have some type of acknowledgement of where they were before guidance came. But for some reason, the African American Muslims have to make an abrupt stop in 1975 or 1980 or something like that. That's messed up our conscience. So what am I saying? The nation comes and it's addressing diet, eat to live, fruits and vegetables, whole grains, very little, if any, sweets, very little, if any, red meat, eating fish, eating one meal a day. Our diet, remember, we're the people who are eating some of the worst parts of the pig, some of the worst parts of everything that was available to eat. We were eating things that were barely edible, and we had to spice it heavily because it was nasty. So that was the plight of the slave, and it just becomes part and parcel of our diet. So here comes a movement saying, change that slave diet. Here comes a movement saying we need to have our own business establishment. We need to circulate our dollars. We need to have our own education system. If the man won't treat you right, he won't teach you right. I think that was one of the sayings. So this is common sense. So a lot of black people, even if they didn't join the movement, that it still resonated with them because it was relevant. And I've mentioned before, Dr. Sherman Jackson, I recall him on a Dr. Ben Hamid Ali's program, mentioning how as a young man growing up in that day, how we underestimate how impactful that was. Like my mother told me one time, she said, look, you don't understand. We believed in Santa Claus as kids. And I laughed because I never thought of Santa Claus as being real. But we forget there was a time we actually believed this stuff. My grandparents, great-grandparents, they actually had a picture of a white man as God on their wall. So here comes Nation of Islam. And now in Black America today, even names like Jamal, Kareem, they just become popular black names. Imam Muhammad met with James Brown, and James Brown told him that he made the song Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud, because of the Nation of Islam, because of his father, Elijah Muhammad. He said, your father's the one who inspired me to write that song. Because remember, prior to this, the old folks will still tell you this, if you were in an argument with another African American, the worst thing you could do in that argument was call him black. That meant you were ready to fight. Those were fighting words. You black, you so black, you black. And we still do that. Notice in the inner city, and a lot of African Americans know, if you really want to get under our skin, make fun of how black we are. Make fun of how black we are. So that's weird. White people don't do that. You so white. Asians don't say you so yellow, you so red. No one does that but us. I'm saying black people, not in America, but I'm saying blacks. Look how they're still selling skin lightening cream in Africa and in the Caribbean. Lighten your skin. In the ad, if you look at some of the ads, it says have better skin, and they have a girl with the cream making her skin more white and less black. So the nation was addressing that. What has happened when we have come into Islam proper? We don't have an agenda of our own anymore. We have an agenda of another group of people. We have arguments from another group of people. And those arguments that we have are having us running in circles. So I'm arguing with you about, is your Aqidah correct? And you're arguing about me, is my pants leg rolled up high enough? And I'm arguing with you about the veil or something non-important. And all of us are living in the same condition. The pathologies of Black America are still present in so many of our communities. the drug abuse, absentee fathers, crime, et cetera, et cetera. We haven't, with this correct belief now, we haven't developed a way to navigate out of the circumstance. And the masjids are holes in the wall, toilets, as Imam used to call them. And so here these people, so again, I repeat, Black America is looking at this. And they're saying, oh man, let's go back to the church. At least we get a good song and dance out of that. I'm not saying that that's right. So we have to be clear. I'll say that we didn't lose our way because most of our people are sincere. They want to be Muslim. And I'm with them. I mean, I want to be Muslim. I don't want to be a Christian. I don't want to be a more science person. I don't want to be in the nation either. Though I acknowledge those movements, my parents made the transition, and I find the answers for our life in al-Islam as given in the Quran and in the authentic tradition of our prophet. But what I think we're not completely off. But I think the problem is we are not, someone or some set of influences have convinced us to not look for answers for the needs, the unique, specific needs of our own life in the Quran and in the tradition. We're importing books. We're importing arguments. We are importing habits of thinking from other people that don't serve us at all. And I think we need to change that.